Let's look now to the people who operate our jails and prisons. Corrections officers, not guard. The media calls them guards, and people who are not educated about corrections might call them guards. But after today, we won't either, will we? Because the term guard gives a very false and negative image of corrections. It's, you know, like a little slap in the face. Kind of like calling a cop a pig. I say guard, and immediately somebody gets a picture in their head, and it's probably not a positive one. Mostly people think of the guards, like in Shawshank Redemption, great movie. But you know, the big, dumb, knuckle-dragging goons who live and breathe to beat up on and pick on the poor, defenseless inmates. Guard. Maybe like these. The guard tells the prisoner hanging on the wall, I promise, or I'll tell you what happened to the key if you promise not to laugh. Oops. This is my favorite. The guard says to the prisoner, before he whips him with his bullwhip, this won't take long. I have to go to a sensitivity training seminar in an hour. Guard. Not an accurate portrayal, not at all. The proper names, depending on where a person works, might be corrections officer. And we hear this mostly in prisons. Sometimes prison officer. Or if they work in a local facility, a jail, we may call them jail deputies or corrections deputies. They are, in fact, sworn deputies. They're deputized by their sheriff. But not guard, or turnkey, or hack, or screw, or any of the derogatory colloquialisms people have used in the past. Just not accurate. The modern corrections officer has education. In fact, Michigan Department of Corrections wants you to have, as a bare bones minimum, 15 credits in human services classes. So that could be corrections, criminal justice, psychology, sociology, child development, social work, any of those kinds of fields. Because we want to know that you understand a little bit about human behavior. Academy training. We have academies for both our prisons and our jails. They're different academies because prisons and jails are different things. But we have academy training. Once you're out of the academy, once you're on the job, we also have in-service training. So we're not just going to let you go stagnant. Every year, we'll be bringing you up to speed on new laws and the way different things impact us. You might be able to pick up some firearms training, some extra stuff like that, bloodborne pathogens, any host of things that we're going to send you to for ongoing training. And interpersonal skills. You know, corrections officers are some of the best communicators in the entire criminal justice field. And I'll tell you why. Because they have to be. They've got the best interpersonal skills around because they have to. Inmates are controlled by communication, not force. We talk to them. They are people. We know their names. They know our names. It's very familiar. We talk to them. So communication is the basis of inmate control. Because guess what? Officers are outnumbered. They could be outnumbered 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 50 to 1, in some cases 100 to 1, 200 to 1. I'm going to tell you, if you think that you control inmates with force, good luck to you. Because you're going to have a hell of a time kicking 100 asses. Even 10. Okay? Since officers are outnumbered, they really have no choice but to become very, very effective communicators. To be able to verbally de-escalate situations much better than their counterparts in law enforcement have to. And they're unarmed. And TV shows will show you, they got the big batons in there, or they even have guns. Oh my God, they even have guns on TV in prisons and jails. No, absolutely not. Imagine, right? If officers are outnumbered, 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 100 to 1, how hard would it be for inmates to overpower the officer and take their weapon from them? And use it against them even? So this means that you don't really want to be carrying anything that's going to get you killed. Now, some facilities allow the use of pepper gas. Does your facility use pepper gas? Yeah, ours did too. And a taser? Yeah. Understanding, that if somebody got that away from you, you'd take a taser ride. And understanding that, if you use pepper gas in close quarters, period, everybody gets to enjoy it. So if you're working in a jail or a prison and you use it in that setting, everybody gets to experience that. So in those cases, it's collateral damage. It sucks. But yeah, officers for the most part are unarmed. They're not going to carry knives or big batons or guns or anything like that that could be taken from them and used to do them real harm or kill them. When I was a rookie, I worked the second shift, and towards the evening, of course, it starts getting dark, so you need a flashlight to be able to see into the cells. So I asked my training officer, this is when I first started in the jail, I asked my training officer, what kind of flashlight should I get? And he looked at me, and he said, one that you won't mind getting hit with. So what he's basically telling me is anything I carry can be taken from me and used as a weapon. So I got one of those little mini mags, like about this size. Yeah, like that. Corrections officers, not guards, professional looking. Correctional officers in most states are organized in paramilitary fashion. They wear uniforms and have ranks of sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. The primary responsibilities of corrections officers. We'll begin with the 3 C's of corrections. The 3 C's of corrections are care, custody, and control. You remember that on the exam, right? Care, custody, and control. So let's start with care. This isn't one of those, oh, I care about you so much. Or, hey, it's your birthday, and mate, here's a card. Not that kind of care. Care refers to providing basic human care as required by law. So you need to know what the law says. This is where correctional law is important. You need to know what the law says in terms of the kind of care that you must provide for inmates. So we meet those basic human care standards. So medical care. We provide medical care for prisoners. We actually even have a prison hospital here in Michigan, down in Jackson. So mostly we transport them to the local hospital for anything smaller, but if it's going to be a chronic long-term sort of thing, we'll transport them down to the prison hospital in Jackson. Food service, NOMS, doesn't that look good? That's probably jail food. Jail food is notoriously bad, whereas prison food not so much. There's a reason for that. And because jails are short-term holding facilities, so you can get away with feeding them bad food because they know they'll be getting out before too long. If you try that in a prison, you're going to have a riot. And so actually prison food is pretty good. That's jail food, I'm sure. Custody. Custody is about preventing escapes. As you might imagine, the neighbors get upset when people leave our facility. We don't want them leaving our facility. We want them to stay where they are. So in this case, we see an officer handcuffing a prisoner before he comes out of his cell, which is standard operating procedure in maximum security prisons. We don't even take them out of the cell unless they're handcuffed and shackled. And we see this officer with an escort holding this inmate who is handcuffed. He's not going anywhere. We see the inside of a control room with the officers operating doors, monitoring cameras, communications. And we see the officer up on a perimeter gun tower down at the old Jackson prison. So he's up out of prisoner reach. If anybody tries to escape, though, he has orders to shoot to kill. Control. We got care, we got custody. Control. Control is about maintaining institutional order. And how do we maintain institutional order? We're going to go in with our nightsticks and crack heads, right? No. No. We are going to communicate. So we're back to the idea that corrections officers become really, really good communicators. And we communicate in a firm, fair, and consistent fashion. Firm, fair, and consistent. So what does firm mean?
You're not convincing me otherwise.
You're
Not convincing me otherwise.
okay. You're on the right track.
Stick to the word.
Firm. Yeah, stick to your guns. Keep your word. Say what you mean what you say. Because if you're not, do I have any parents here? Anybody got kids? You're all too young. Well, if you don't do that with kids, they'll play you. They'll play one parent against the other. Maybe you've just been doing this recently yourself. Well, I've even got some nods over here. Yeah. So stick to your guns. This is what I said. This is how it's going to be. You know, that's the way it is. The prisoners will appreciate that. Nobody likes somebody that flips and flops all over the place because you don't ever know where they stand or where you stand with them. So as an officer, be firm. Say what you mean what you say. If you make a promise, follow through. Fair, what's that mean? Fair.
Treat everybody the same.
We treat everybody the same. Now this can be a challenge because, as I said, this is not stranger policing. It's very intimate. We all know each other. And there are going to be those prisoners that you like, you hold in high regard, and there's going to be those prisoners that you can't stand. Chester the molester. You don't want anything to do with Chester the molester, and if you had your way, you'd throw him right in general population and say, hey everybody, that's a child molester, and let him beat the crap out of him, right? But we can't do that. There's this thing called the Eighth Amendment that says, no, you can't do that. So, even though you might hate Chester the molester, and I don't know, you might like Billy the burglar, you can't treat them different ways. You got to treat everybody the same. So you can't pick on Chester the molester, and you can't play favorites with Billy the burglar. You got to treat everybody the same and put your personal feelings aside. And sometimes that's difficult. This is where the whole professionalism comes in, right? You got to be a professional. So you treat everybody the same regardless of what they've done. Nobody died, made you a judge. You're not God. The person has been convicted in a court of law. They've been judged already. So let them do their time. Consistent, what does that mean?
Do the same thing every time.
Do the same thing every time. Who? Who does the same thing every time? Yeah, the officers.
My bad.
The officers are the same every time. So today, you are the same officer that you were yesterday. And the same officer that you were 2 days ago. And the same officer that you were last week. The same officer that you were last month. And the same officer that you will be tomorrow. And the same officer that you will be in a month. That is that you come in and you pick a spot and stay there, okay? You don't let your moods affect your behavior. Maybe you had a terrible fight with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse the night before. And you come in to work in a big mood and you're taking your mood out on everybody and writing everybody misconduct tickets for the least little thing. And then you get home and your spouse has cooked your favorite dinner and you have awesome makeup sex. And so the next day you're in a really good mood, so you're going around, you know, throwing out flowers and rainbows to everybody. But you can't do that. Leave it at the door when you come in and be that same professional person today that you were yesterday, that you were the day before. Pick a spot, stay there. Now, there are some officers who pick spots that I'm going to say aren't the best spots to be, but at least they're consistent. I'll give them that. There's Officer Hard-Ass. Now, you can be Officer Hard-Ass You probably work with an officer hard ass. You can probably tell me his name, but you're not going to. This is the officer that absolutely refuses to communicate with the inmates. And their favorite word is no. The inmate says, "Officer, can I?" And the officer goes, "No." "But I was wondering if," "No." "Well, could you?" "No." "Can I?" "No." Okay, that's not a really good way to be. It's not a very good way to communicate with inmates. And Officer Hardass is almost always the first one to be taken out in a riot. But, that said, the inmates know what to expect. Oh, don't ask him. He's a hard ass. He won't give it to you. They know. Or you could be Officer Fluffy. You could go to the other extreme too. And every agency has its Officer Fluffies. And Officer Fluffy says yes to everything and gives all the inmates everything they want. "Oh, you want? Oh, sure, yeah, sure, I'll break the rule and I'll do that for you. Yeah, sure, no problem, you can have that. Yeah, sure." You know that guy too. Those are usually the officers that get set up and taken down for prisoners' amusement because they're easy marks. But that said, at least we all know where we stand with Officer Fluffy. Officer Fluffy is fluffy every day. What you can't do is be fluffy one day and hard ass the next and back and forth. Or, you can be Officer Firm, Fair, and Consistent in the middle and be that officer every day too. That you stick to your guns, that you say what you mean what you say, you treat everybody the same, you don't play favorites, you don't persecute people you don't like. Be that officer in the middle and be that officer every day. Firm, fair, consistent. We have a saying in corrections: if you give respect, you get respect. And it's very true. I just have people ask me, "Well, what do you mean by give respect?" Treat them like you'd want to be treated. The golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat people the way that you would like to be treated. I've had people say, "Well, so, are you polite to inmates?" "Yeah, sure I am, absolutely." Say please and thank you, because you get a lot more mileage out of please and thank you than just bossing people around like some little Napoleon. "Would you please?" "Thank you." Sure, absolutely. Think about it. Think of a time when somebody has been rude or disrespectful to you, and think of how that made you feel. How angry and upset it made you feel. Now think of a time when somebody was courteous and polite and showed you respect, and think how that made you want to respond in the same fashion. And most of the time, inmates will respond to the way they are treated. So if you want them to behave like animals, you treat them like animals. That's what you're going to get. If you want them to behave like human beings, you treat them with the respect that they have coming as a fellow human being. Not for their crime, but as a fellow human being. Treat them the way that you would want to be treated if the shoe was on the other foot, right? If your roles were reversed. That's it. Now, to be sure, there are some badasses out there, and they don't respond to that, and that's what maximum security is for. But fortunately, we don't need a lot of maximum security cells, because most people do respond to being treated with respect. Communicating with inmates. So we see this officer here addressing this inmate's concerns. I'm going to assume because he's in a suit, that's probably a booking and intake cell in an old jail. We see this officer talking to a group of inmates here. We see this officer here, he's probably having a little come to Jesus meeting with this inmate about the sanitation of his cell. His cell was probably kind of messy. And he's saying, "Hey, Joe, if you don't get that cell cleaned up, I'm going to have to rate you up, and I really don't want to do that. So, would you go back in there and clean that cell up for me, please, like it's supposed to be." And then this is Officer Sally. And this is Fred and Tom, a couple of inmates. And they're playing a friendly game of checkers here. And Officer Sally is the unit officer, and she comes over and she knows that Tom always wins. So she says, hey, don't do that, don't move there, he's going to beat you again, don't do that. And he does it anyway. And she says, "Oh man, got you again." Just laid back, regular people talking. Training. Corrections officers training. we talked a lot about police training, so now it's time to look at the other half. So let's start with the state of Michigan first. The state of Michigan, Michigan Department of Corrections, so what I'm going to say here applies only to Michigan prisons, not jails, not any other state, just to Michigan prisons. Michigan Department of Corrections is now hiring. They're trying to fill about 700 positions this year. They're hiring like right now, big time. They have their own academy. Now, most of the time they borrow the State Police Academy down in Lansing, unless the state police need it. So most of the time it's at the Michigan State Police Academy, or if that's not available, then they'll designate a different location. And there are 8 weeks of classroom training. So you go down there, you stay there, it's Monday through Friday with weekends and holidays off. 2 of my students just graduated the Michigan Department of Corrections Academy last Friday actually. Now I saw how much y'all liked Mr. Werner when he came in and spoke with us. And I even have some people saying, well, maybe I'll think about this corrections thing. We'll think about it even some more, because I'm going to tell you some cool stuff here. All right, free training, room and board for 8 weeks. It's free. You don't pay a penny. If you go to a police academy, if you go to the Delta College Police Academy or any of the other regional academies in Michigan, you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay big money. In fact, I think they're running about $6-7 grand. I mean, yes, it qualifies for financial aid, but mostly that's like loans. You got to pay those back. And you got to pay for the academy. In this case, no, it's free. All of your training, all of your room, all of your board. And on top of that, we will pay you. We will pay you to go to the academy. You're hired. You're hired already by the Department of Corrections. So the first day of the academy is your first day on the job, and you're paid. $17.67 an hour while you are a know-nothing recruit in training. $17.67. It goes up to about $28 an hour after a year, and it tops out right now at $27.06 per hour. This does not count overtime. There's a lot of overtime to be had. This does not count sick days, vacation pay, personal time. It doesn't include shift differential, shift premiums for working second or third shift. It doesn't count the premium that you get if you work in a higher security prison. And the physical requirements are not nearly as stringent as policing. So for some people, they say, oh wow, you know, police academy, that looks pretty daunting. That's pretty physical, and I don't know if I can do that, and I don't even know if I want to do that. Well, good news. Department of Corrections isn't nearly as physical. Very, very much less rigorous than police. Now there's a reason for it. It's not because being fit isn't important in corrections, it is. But the nice thing about corrections is you've got backup like right now. You're a police officer, a city officer, county officer, state officer. Even in the city, I mean, backup can still be, 2, 3, 5 minutes coming. And when you're rolling around on the ground fighting for your life, those minutes, those seconds turn into hours. If you're working for the county or the state, the DNR, you could be out half hour, 45 minutes away from any backup. So in other words, you need to be very physically fit so you can handle your stuff. In corrections, backup is seconds. You're carrying a man down alarm and you've got your radio. So on your man down alarm, you either pull the pin or push the button and it sets off an alarm in control. You key your mic and scream help. Somebody's going to hear that, and believe you me, somebody's coming fast. Lots of somebodies. Usually in about 15 to 30 seconds, you've got several somebodies there. And in a minute, you've got even more somebodies, right? As soon as they hear officer in distress, everybody's there. So the thing is, you don't need to handle your stuff, your situation, for nearly as long as you do in policing. So the physical requirements are less rigorous. For some people, that has a lot of appeal. You have full benefits. Full benefits. So your medical, and it's a very good medical insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Good medical insurance. Dental insurance. Life insurance. Right? So God forbid something should happen to you and you lose your life, your family gets a payout. Something happens to you, you get injured, there's disability insurance. We got your back. Now they don't have a pension anymore, but they do have a portable 401k. So if you decide that corrections isn't your thing, you pick up your 401k and take it with you. The state will match it at 3%. So if you put in 3% of your pay, the state matches it at 3% and you got 6% going in. Maybe you put in 7%, the state matches at 3%, now you've got 10% going in. See how that works? So you start that as soon as you get in there, and you can save up a lot of change for retirement that way. So you might be looking at the Department of Corrections physical fitness requirements going, well, that's not really hard, I can do that, hold the phone. I've had many students that didn't bother to practice first and went zipping down there and failed. And first off, it's back to back to back, so you do your push-ups, your sit-ups, and your steps back to back. There's no resting in between. You just move from one station to the next. Secondly, where was I going to go with this? Well, I got derailed here. You're going to edit this out too. Back to back. Oh, steps, cardio. Now you might say, well, I've got really good cardiovascular fitness. I run on the treadmill all the time, or I run out on the road all the time, so I can do the steps no problem. The steps are a different beast. I used to run, back when I was with the sheriff's office, I used to run 5 miles a day, 3, 4, 5 times a week. I was lean and mean, I was buff and tough. I went to work at the courthouse. This was our old courthouse that had a lot of steps. I went to work at the courthouse and I thought I was going to die that first week. Because I'm running up and down the stairs, I'm getting my Kevlar vest and my gun belt and all the weight and everything, and I'm going up and down these stairs, and the guy I'm working with is this big, fat, 55-year-old, out-of-shape, heavy drinker kind of guy with this red bulbous nose. Not somebody that was in very good shape. And he's doing steps with no problem at all, and he's laughing at me. What's the matter, kid? You out of shape? But what I discovered is steps are a completely different thing than other cardio. So the best way to prepare for a step test is to do steps. Get on a Stairmaster, a stair climber, wait for the snow to disappear and you can run the steps in your stadium, right? Something like that. But it's different. So don't just say, well, I'm just going to run and it's the same thing. It's not. So get ready for steps by doing steps. All right, moving away from prisons, let's go to jails. Apples, oranges. Jails, prisons. Okay. So let's talk about jails. What I'm going to say now applies only to jails and only to jails in Michigan. There is a jail academy. It's a 160-hour jail officers basic training academy. It runs about a month, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. So 40 hours a week times 4. There's your 160 hours. It's completely different than the Department of Corrections Academy. It's completely different than the Police Academy because you need to know different stuff to work in a jail than working in a prison or working as a police officer. Now here's something you might not know. Our jail academy, we have one here at Delta, and they're located regionally around the state, is open to anybody. Any one of you could sign up for the jail academy if you wanted to. That's what we call pre-service, that you're not employed by a sheriff's office, but maybe you desire to be. And maybe by getting this academy done up front, then you could apply. And you could say, hey, sheriff, right here, look at me. I have this academy already. Look at all the money I'm going to save you. Look how dedicated I am. You want to hire me. And the sheriff might say, well, gosh, this young man or this young woman has already completed this academy. I don't have to pay to send them. So that's going to save me a bunch of money. And obviously, they really want to work in a jail pretty badly, or they wouldn't have put themselves through. So you can do that. It qualifies for financial aid. There is also the in-service route for hired corrections deputies. So you can get hired in by an agency, and that agency will send you on their dime. Have you been yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, probably in May, huh?
I'm not going to one in May.
Not going to the one in May?
There's one in the fall too.
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. So you get hired by your agency, and your agency sends you through. Now you might say, well, why not do that? And the truth of the matter is, it's probably for most people, it's the way they're going to do it. But if you're interested, if you want to get a leg up, if you just want the experience, you can do that. Now the jail academy is not very physical at all. There is the requirement test, the physical fitness test, which you watched prior to coming to class on e-learning. Right, Lindsay? So you have to pass that test. There's a written test, and then you can apply. And this is what it covers. So you got your booking and intake module. You've got correctional law, cultural diversity, custody and security, defensive tactics, ethics, fire safety, first aid, interpersonal communications, prisoner behavior, report writing, workplace harassment, stress management, and suicide awareness. There is no PT. The only physical component is the defensive tactics. That's 40 hours. So you spend an entire week learning various defensive tactics, how to control prisoners and how to protect yourself, how to get yourself out of situations. So there's no PT. There's no running. There's no push-ups. There's none of that. So once you pass the test initially to get into the academy, that's the end of the physical fitness stuff. That's the end of the PT. After that, it's kind of up to you. So they're located regionally. We have one right here at Delta College. We run it every May. Sometimes we run it in the fall. We did last fall. I don't know if we will this fall or not. It depends on how many people sign up. In that 4-week format, 5 days a week, 8 to 5. Now, we would like to run it in this other format here. It hasn't happened yet because we don't get enough people signing up, but we would like to run it as a class. And it would run in the evenings from 6 to 10, 3 days a week. Because you know what? Everybody can't take an entire month off of work. So if you're pre-service and you're just looking at putting yourself through, well, you know, how do you take a whole month off of work? Then how do you pay the bills, right? So this way you would be able to continue your job and still go through the academy. But we have to have enough people sign up for it to do it. So every winter we put it up there on the board, and every winter we don't get enough people. So hopefully maybe, you know, we get the word out like this in classes. People will say, oh, well, I could do this as a class rather than, you know, have to take an entire month off of work. If you are interested, get a hold of Tom Gilman at this Horsepower there. There's his phone number. I used to work with him at the sheriff's office. He's a good guy and he'll help you out. If you think that you are interested in going to the jail academy, that's the guy to get a hold of. Now this is from a few years back because they took this page down and I thought it was a cool page, so I just leave it up here. But it is 6 credits. You get 6 college credits for it. And your tuition also covers all of your books, all of your PT gear except for your shoes and socks. Uniforms, 2 sets of uniforms. And last time I checked, don't take this to the bank, last time I checked it was in the vicinity of around $1,700 for a full month of training, books, uniforms, tuition, the whole 9 yards. If you're interested in working for a jail, it's something to look at. Questions?